In this video, I will show the contextual annotators that are built within the Annotator for Clinical Data service and are exposed through the Annotator for Clinical Data Configuration Editor tool. I will be using the Lupus cartridge that we have used in several other videos, as well as some sample text that was made up to showcase these annotators. To run the contextual annotators, I need to run ACD with a flow that includes those annotators. I can either do this with an existing saved flow or by selecting these annotators in my current flow in the Select Annotators dropdown. I'm going to show off the contextual annotators for disambiguation, hypothetical, negation, section, and spell check. I'm going to run that flow by clicking Run. I'm first going to focus on the disambiguation annotator, which can be used to determine which concepts over a span of text are valid for the context in which those concepts are found. One example is the text week in the sentence, "She smokes 2 packs a week." Hovering over this text shows us all of the annotations found over this particular word. You can see in this first concept that the validity was marked as invalid by the disambiguation annotator. This is because this concept for week, which is transaction counts and value totals, is not valid within this context. And instead, the other concept found for week in terms of a temporal concept was valid, as in this context, week stands for a span of time in which the patient smokes cigarettes. Another indication of invalid concepts is the text color. If all concepts over a particular span of text are marked as invalid, the text is colored dark red, as with the text patient has in the first sentence. Next, we'll look at hypothetical. Again, one indication of hypothetical concepts is the text color. You'll see that echocardiogram, scheduled, and date are all colored orange-yellow. This is because all of the concepts over those words are marked as hypothetical. As the echocardiogram is scheduled for a later date, so it is unsure whether or not it has actually happened or even will happen. Therefore, it is hypothetical. In the right panel at the very bottom is also where you can highlight contextual spans. This is when not only is a single concept marked as hypothetical, but whole groups of texts are hypothetical. Clicking on the hypothetical span section in the contextual area in the Findings tab will highlight any groups of text that are marked as hypothetical spans. As you can see, the whole sentence, "Another echocardiogram is scheduled for a later date," is marked as a hypothetical span. Similar to hypothetical is the negation annotator, which marks concepts as either negated or not, and marks spans of text as negated. Text with negated concepts is a coral orange color, as with existing heart defects. Clicking on negated span in that right summary pane will again color any spans of text that are marked as negated with a light orange coral color. You can also then hover over a particular span of text to see in the summary for those annotations whether or not negated is true. Sections is another annotator which adds information about which section of the document an annotation is found in, which can be important for understanding the context. This particular document has clearly defined sections, as you can see by the section of medical at the top, and then family history, lab result report, and current medications. I'm going to hover over the text for heart disease in the family history section. You can see that heart disease, the annotation found, is actually noted with a section name of family history. This can be very important contextual information. For example, Your application may be looking for whether the specific patient has heart disease. But since this concept is in the family history section, it is not known whether the individual patient is specifically diagnosed, as instead this is about the family history. So your application knows to ignore heart disease in this context, as it is family history and not an individual patient diagnosis. Spell check is the final contextual annotator that I would like to display. Spell check catches spelling mistakes and suggests corrections. We can show it by going to the Show menu at the top and selecting Spelling Corrections. And I am also going to unselect Concepts to show it off a little more obviously. You can see there is now a red squiggly underline underneath echocardiogram, as that was found to be a spelling mistake. You can see that there is an annotation with two specific suggestions by the spell check annotator. Suggestion 1 being echocardiogram and suggestion 2 being echocardiograms. It also tells you the confidence level of how confident spell check was that this particular correction is the correct choice. Since the confidence for echocardiogram was very high and was in this case also higher than the other suggestion, this is the actual correction that was applied. Since this spelling correction was actually applied, concept detection was then able to annotate concepts over that text with the correct wording. And so as a result, we got a concept of echocardiography and a concept of echocardiogram over this text, which we would not have gotten if it had not been corrected, as echocardiogram is obviously not a surface form for echocardiography or echocardiogram. Spell check actually has a couple other options that I would like to show you. Going to the Select Annotators flow, we can click on Advanced. And you can see that under Spell check here in the center, there is an option to switch the profile of the spell check annotator. You can either choose the default spelling corrections or OCR corrections. The OCR corrections profile focuses on common mistakes that are made by optical character readers. For example, when perhaps your application uses text that an optical character reader has parsed out of a PDF document. OCRs tend to have certain spelling mistakes that a usual human does not make. For example, the default spelling correction profile does not correct numbers, but OCRs commonly make a mistake of thinking an L is a 1 or other common mistakes, and so the OCR profile will correct those. This is how you can use contextual annotators within your application in order to determine information related to the context of the text.